You could do one of those disclaimers on the radio, you know. We've made an effort to coordinate the topics between our 8 speakers today. There's going to be some overlap. There's going to be some material that's repeated, which I think is a good thing. There are certainly some issues that you can't hear too many times. It's just there's some really important things we're going to go over. The next speaker is Don Swartz, and he's going to talk about getting located and getting equipped. And what we're trying to address, I think, in this segment is just to think ahead. Don't go sign a lease and then be in a position where you're saying, oh my God, I never knew I needed one of those. Or how much does that cost? Or can I get by on a cell phone, or do I need a landline? All that practical stuff, which maybe isn't very lawyerly or just really not something you want to think about ahead of time. But don't put yourself in that kind of a crunch. Don, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for coming. We have a really good turnout today, so that's good. As we were getting ready for this presentation, we were told or asked to kind of share our experience and why we wanted to start on our own. Maybe that would help out. So, briefly, my firm is approaching its 3-year anniversary tomorrow, actually. So, cool. I've made it 3 years. They say 5 is really the turning point. So 2 more years to go. But back when I was in law school, like a couple of you law students here, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Did I want to work for a big firm? Did I want to go for a small firm? Well, as fate would have it, my decision was decided for me. I ended up marrying this one woman. We moved to Steubenville, Ohio, and I started practicing in a small group of attorneys. There were 8 of us, all in the letterhead, but we were all solos sharing office space. We'll kind of touch on that a little bit. And I liked that. It was great. The support staff was there. You could roll down the hallway. We had 2 county court judges that were in our practice. So we can ask questions. What do I do if this happens? It was nice. Unfortunately, that ended after 5 years. I ended up moving to Cincinnati, and I started working at a bigger firm. Big, huge change. I'm not the boss anymore. I don't decide my calendar. I couldn't decide when I wanted to be at my desk, when I was not allowed to be at my desk. I had management talking to me about why I had the audacity to go and get a coffee at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, are you serious? Coffee? I felt like, was it Allen Iverson in his practice speech, if you guys have ever heard that on ESPN. Practice? I was thinking, coffee? Are we really talking about coffee? Did I go to law school to be talked about coffee? I'm like, are you kidding me? And I think it was that point, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Done with the big firm. I got to go back. It's just not for me. I actually ended up talking to Nick about business plans well before he did that flying solo, and then ended up putting that together. So kind of nice. It's a nice tie-in, because I went to a small business lender just to make sure I had a little cushion. There's always slow months. I'd done it before, so I knew some months of the year clients aren't paying. Right around Christmas time, they're not paying their attorneys, guys. They're buying their kids presents, buying their spouses presents. So sometimes you get a little slow. So I had that money. That business plan, the banker looked at me and looked at that business plan, and he didn't know what to do with it. He's like, wow, I don't usually get one of these. This is nice. And he just kind of sat it next to his desk. He was just kind of like, nice. I knew right then, I'm like, okay, I'm in. It doesn't matter what's in there. It could be like a bunch of old newspaper clippings. But he thought it was pretty special. So that's kind of like a little bit why I want to go out on my own. The autonomy, being able to make my own decisions. It was kind of why I went to law school. As a secondary thing, being in a big firm, there's no face of my client. My clients were big corporations, and I couldn't see anybody. I wasn't sitting across the desk feeling like I was making a difference in anybody's lives. Being there. So, first thing I had to think about after this business plan is putting together my budget, kind of knew how much I had, was choosing where I wanted to go. Do I want to be in Cincinnati? do I want to be someplace outside of Cincinnati? I decided I wanted to have people coming into my office. I felt like being downtown was restrictive, plus the rent was, high. So I figured, well, okay, I'm going to go outside of Cincinnati. I just chose the east side because that's what happened to be where I lived. Now, I hear you guys are from Cincinnati. Don't take that as an east side, west side thing. I'm a transplant here. I still don't understand the east side, west side thing. I just happened to fall there, kind of like, Dorothy falling out of the tornado. Just kind of happened to land on that witch. So I landed out there. I started looking around for office space. I was looking at office share, those CMC places. I was looking at a bunch of different little offices for rent, all throughout the east side. Just so happens I landed at a place right across the street from the Claremont County Courthouse. I figured, perfect. If I ever have to go to court, I just walk across the street. How sweet is that? So when you make your decision, where do you want to be, don't be afraid to look at options. Every single option you can do before you sign that lease. I used to work with a couple of guys. Actually, I worked with one attorney who moved to another big firm, decided it wasn't for him, and he and this other guy decided to go out on their own. They didn't even know each other. So what do you think they did? Let's find the highest rent place in Cincinnati and sign a 3-year lease. That's a great idea. Did they have a business plan? No. Oh, money will come. I'm like, okay, guys. Where's that place now? Well, one attorney's down in Florida not practicing law anymore, and the other one is at another local firm here. So that divorce, unlike Nick's, ended very badly. Okay? So where do you want to be? Small town, big city, east side, north side, northern Kentucky. Your budget will kind of depend on where you want to be, where you can afford. Just like when you're buying a house, don't be office poor. Don't be home poor. Have enough money to be able to, if you're going to have a brick and mortar place, be able to furnish it, have some things in there. If you just have a bare bulb and you walk in, and the client walks in and they're like, oh, what's that? Okay. One of the things to think about is who are your clients? Who are your clients that you want to have? Okay, as you're going out on your own, or if you're going to do this, what clients do you want to have? Are they actually going to be people sitting in front of you? Are they going to be corporations that you're going to be dealing with electronically over the internet? Either way is fine, but if you know what clients you are going to have, it kind of almost helps you out with what kind of an office space you want to have. If you are going to be in litigation, doing a lot of depositions, virtual office space is going to be kind of weird. Okay? People at your dinner table getting deposed, it's going to feel weird for them. So they're not, they watch Law and Order, they watch all the lawyer shows on TV. They're not expecting to be in that situation. Will you have employees as part of your business plan, starting right out the gate? Some people do. Again, where you're going to be, a virtual office space may not be that kind of the best. But if you're not going to have employees, if most of your appointments, you can meet them at their offices, if it's a business clients, that's where clients feel comfortable in their own office. Perfect. You don't need a brick and mortar. Small firm versus shared space. We kind of touched on that a little bit. If you're in a small firm, okay, you choose your entity to partnership, limited liability company, or limited professional association. You are in a marriage with all those people or other person. So how they go determines how you go. So if they're doing poorly, you could also may be doing poorly just because there's no cash flow there. If you're bringing in your clients and getting paid, but your partner is not, for whatever reason, Or, you know, I've known some other friends from law school that went out on their own. They had a little tiny office. They didn't go above board. One attorney was there 50 hours a week in the office. The other attorney, not so much. Their plan was that they would share all revenue that came in 50-50. They'd share all expenses 50-50. So imagine the one attorney, she's sitting in her office at 8:30 at night, busting out some motions and trying to get some client work done, and her partner off at dinner with her husband. The next day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where is she? She's coming in today? You start feeling like the other person's not pulling their weight. It's kind of a weird feeling. So that's kind of the disadvantage. The advantage, obviously, is you've got somebody else there to share your expenses with you, to share your ability to go on vacation and have somebody cover your files. If you have a law firm, like say, for example, I had another partner, Swartz and Smith, and I'm not there for a hearing, but Amy Smith rolls into a hearing, judges and courts look at it and go, okay, they're same firm, we get it. But if it's just Don Swartz, and then all of a sudden Amy Smith walks in, the judge is like, who are you? Why are you here? Did you file a notice of appearance? I've had judges that say, no notice of appearance, I'm not listening to you. It's like you don't exist. You got anybody else ever run into that scenario? Nobody? You're lucky. I had to show up at a hearing for this one firm I was actually at, and the judge said, no notice of appearance, counsel? Sorry, can't hear you. Now, we got about 10 minutes before the hearing, so if you want to run down to the clerk's office and file one, and come back. Like, great, Your Honor. I don't have a printer on me. Not my problem, counsel. So in those scenarios, you know, that one judge may be a little bit off the wall, but any other time first starting out with the 8 attorneys on the letterhead, no judge ever questioned any one of us showing up for any other one. A shared space, it's nice, but you're not basically taking on the other person's responsibilities as far as if they commit malpractice, which is always the big scary thing for me. Because if you hold yourself out, Swartz and Smith on your letterhead, even though you're maybe not partnership, you're just a shared space or sharing expenses, if the public thinks you are a law firm, then you're going to be treated as a law firm for those liability purposes. So if you're going to do a shared space, you and a friend get to share this one office because it's got 2 offices and a nice conference room, and together the rent is good, you can afford it, then by all means do it. But make sure your business plan, you individually, can foot that fixed cost bill if the other person decides they don't want to do this anymore. They don't want to play. They take their ball and go home. Okay? And if you guys have any questions as I'm going through this, please feel free to shout them out.
Don, could I interject here then?
Sure.
Some of you know I'm counsel at the Grievance Committee for many years. My observation is shared space is more risky than being solo, partially for the reason you just said. I think, and for what Nick said about you get out of law school and you're not thinking about, gee, I got to run a business, I got to think of all these other things. I want to be a lawyer, I want to practice law, and your focus is probably not the business, and you get some, where are we going to go? We get some classmates, we rent some space. There's 3 or 4 of us renting this space, and I think the guy down the hall is taking care of that. I don't need to worry about who's paying for the Xerox or who's paying for the paralegal or whatever it is. And I just think it's riskier. I think I'm not recommending solo over that. I'm just saying my observation has been just as a purely practical matter. I think if you're solo, you know you're responsible. In the back of your head, even if it's not what you want to think about, the business part, the practical part, you know it's you. You know it's on you. If there's 3 or 4 of you and you're just kind of loosey-goosey. We got some space here, we're doing this.
Loosey-goosey would be the legal term, by the way.
That's from the heart. I agree with what you said. That's our observation. You really got to be careful in that kind of situation. If somebody isn't doing well, they leave, they're going to move back to Cleveland, wherever they're from. You're stuck with the rank. It's really a good observation.
Right. It's a little scary, but if you know that you can cover it yourself before you do it, and you're okay with it, in case that happens, just be mindful of these things as you think about going out on your own or going out with somebody else, exactly what you're getting involved in. And it's always been that if you go in with your eyes open, you kind of know, hey, this could be a scary scenario, shared space or small firm, either way, then if something happens, you can at least have something in the back of your mind to plan for what happens if the bad things happen. All right, enough of the bad stuff. Supplies, equipment, and staffing. This is kind of fun. I think Nick touched on it a little bit. Going shopping, kind of picking out what you want or what you need. Obviously, your budget is going to determine what kind of stuff that you're going to have as you start. And I put down here a little list of some things that I think that you may want to consider that are kind of must-haves. Typewriters, kind of a thing of the past. My kindergartner came home yesterday. She's learning about the letter T, and she had a picture, all these pictures, and one of them was a typewriter, and she had colored it because she was supposed to color all the things that begin with T a color. And I looked at that, and I knew, I'm like, there's no way you know what that thing is. No way! We don't have one in our house. You've never seen one. How did you know that began with T? What is that? I don't know. But how did you color it? So the idea of typewriters is just a way thing of the past. When I first started practicing law back in '97, we had typewriters. We didn't have like the fancy computer, scanner, OCR stuff that we have now. So what do you need to have? Computer, obviously, with word processing software. It's a must-have. Okay? I know the OCR, that character recognition, is getting much better. It's not perfect. It's getting much better. Has anyone tried out any of the newer, I might say newer in the last 2 or 3 years, that voice recognition typing software? You tried it? Is it working?
I'm a horrible typist, so that's a testament to how well the system works. It's really amazing with medical terminology. I do disability claims and personal injury, so it's very good at recognizing medical terminology, but common words you spend a lot of time correcting. So you really have to be a bad typist.
See, that would kill me. The common words. I said the. Come on. Those little emails or pictures of silly text messages going horribly wrong. I still vision that as the character recognition or that voice recognition software. Back in '97 or '98, they came out with this thing called Dragon Dictate, and I remember the senior attorney in our firm. He was kind of a little bit of a prankster. He bought the software just so he could torment our secretary with it. And he would go around saying, hey, look, this is your replacement right here in a box. And she would just bust out crying right there on the spot. Of course, he felt horrible. He didn't expect her to cry. But that stuff would recognize 1 out of 10 words. I tried it, when I first started because I didn't have a lot of clients yet. And you have to train it. I'm like, I've trained dogs easier than this software. So I didn't know if it was any better, and it sounds like marginally, maybe. Some of this other stuff, obviously a desk. It's kind of hard to write on a wall, with your pen. It starts to run out. So some things are kind of, obviously. Computer backup, huge. If you think it's not, it is. Luckily, I just had to experience a hardware failure where my entire drive went south one day, right when I was getting ready to print something so I could go to court. Come on. Whole computer just froze up. Luckily, I had everything backed up in the cloud, so was able to collect it back. So I shudder to think what would have happened if I had not had that done. I can't even say that word. A calendar system, how about that? Paper or computer, which one you guys going to use? Silly to think about that, but if you're sitting there in court and the judge is saying, okay, we're going to set this hearing for October 15th at 3 o'clock, is that good with you, counsel? My battery died, Your Honor. Can I get back down that? No. Which one are you going to use? I'm kind of older fashioned. I like the actual paper calendars. I know some of the younger attorneys that are in court with me, they've opened their smartphone and, oh yeah, that's a good date. I still feel like it, the tangibleness of it. It's kind of like a security blanket for me. The other thing that I guess I wanted to throw out there that was so far the best purchase of computer software that I've done is the Adobe Acrobat program. That thing it's like a magic wizard. It's fantastic. If you guys have never used that yet, it does just about everything for you. It can, if you scan something in, you can create it, make a form out of it. You can take those forms that say you can't save information on different court websites as PDF files, and you can actually save them. It will do that for you. It will recognize characters, assuming that the document that you're looking at is fairly decent quality-wise, without too much noise in it. I've done a lot of legal descriptions by scanning a document in, recognizing the characters, then copying and pasting it into a new deed. I've had to change hardly anything on some of them. It's great software. If you can afford it, it's a little pricey. I think it's like $480, $500, but it works very well. You can redact information out of the document. So instead of sitting there with a black magic marker, redacting your client's information before you file it, or give it to the other side, or what have you, it has a little magic wand and it just highlights a box and poof, it's gone. Never to be seen again. I don't know about you guys, but I've gotten documents with magic marker. I always flip it over, look at the back. Does anybody else do that? Am I the only one? All right, well, not always. You can still see some of that stuff, and it's like, I can still see a Social Security number. Ha. Not that I'm going to post it on YouTube or Twitter or anything, but it's just funny because it's there. I'm like, it doesn't take it away totally. And that whiteout tape, you guys use that whiteout tape? That stuff peels right off. Okay. Oh, look at that. Oops, you didn't want me to see that, so sorry. So little things like that are great to have. Nice to have is this other stuff. The large office copier. Anybody has ever sat there on one of those little desktops, had a big discovery packet, and you had to copy 2 copies? I'm gonna go to lunch, come back, still copying. The big, if you can afford it, the bigger ones are nice. They run faster, so you're not sitting there, standing, wasting your time. Next, we have little creature comforts for clients and you. Depending on your budget, where you are, client comes into your office, what kind of chairs are they sitting on? Are those plastic ones you see out at, the $2 ones you buy at the dollar store? Or are they more comfortable leather chairs? Perception is always reality. So if you've got little $5 fold-up chairs that you kind of like, hold on, you got to open them up and put them down for the clients to sit on, that gives one impression as opposed to another one where you might have like a couple nice chairs. What other things will you have? In my office, I had to have a small refrigerator to keep sodas, some water in there. I offer clients a water when they come in. Then I can say the water is a, business expense. Hopefully that works out so well. Pictures, artwork, everyone's different. I've noticed that, clients are always sitting there looking around. What do they see on the walls? Little things like that to think about. How am I doing time-wise? What I got? 5 minutes? Okay. Then some other legal research and resources that you can use. Obviously, Lexis is a great product. Westlaw is a great product. Can we afford them out the gate? Maybe not. Obviously, it's something I'd like to use. The law library has Westlaw in Claremont County, so I can roll across the street and use theirs if I need to. But certain other things that I listed here that are fairly cheap to use. If you've already paying your Ohio State Bar Association dues, you have free access to CaseMaker. It's nice. Search engine is not as advanced as Westlaw or Lexis, but if you know what you're looking for, you can find it really quick. And so that's a nice feature to have. Local law library we talked about. Google, of course, Google. Does anyone not use Google anymore? If you guys ever type in a search and you see Google pop up with, hey, I was going to search that. Does that bother anybody else? Do they know what I'm thinking? Or is it just other people have done this before? The one thing I did not put on here is software to manage your practice. Must have, nice to have. How are you going to make sure you conflict check? That's a big deal to make sure you're not talking to somebody that you shouldn't be. It's something that I think of at the beginning that you should make sure you plan for. When you first start practicing, typically the way, 97, this is how we would do it. You put everything on little index cards with cross references, and you'd have to go check all the names. Smith. Great. Yep. You'd have to check them that way and see what kind of files you've got on Smith. And then run everyone's name through that same paper calendar or paper index system. Okay? Obviously, today's systems are way better. There's a lot of different companies out there that produce this stuff for you. Again, it becomes is it fit in your budget? When I was researching these, time slips, Abacus. There's one more now that escapes me. But they had usually two components. They had your client management, then they had your bookkeeping. Okay. Each program base was $1,000 for the license, nearly, and then maintenance. Every year, every other year, you have to pay to keep using the system so it wouldn't just shut off on you. It's a little pricey, just starting off. There's another system out there that is promoted through the Ohio State Bar Association called Clio. Has anyone here ever heard of Clio? A couple people. It's nice. I've started using it within the last year, and it has the search feature. You just go up on the top, and you type in a name, and it pulls up every name associated with every file or anything, even appointments. So if you didn't actually have somebody retain you, you talk to them, so maybe you didn't open a file per se, but you put their information into that database, and then a year later you can pull up, yep, I talked to that person. And it's saved me some time because I was able to go back and I know that name, I know this name, I know that. What is it? I didn't have a file on this person. They didn't retain me, but I had an appointment with them a year and a half ago that they didn't show up for. So I'm like, I knew that name. So little things like that, think about. It's an exciting time as you guys are thinking about going out on your own. lots of stuff. Of course, we're giving you lots of stuff to think about. But as Nick said, if you ever have any questions about anything, feel free to give me a call. I'm more than happy to help you out, as others have helped me. You know, it's kind of what we do in the bar.
What is your practice area?
I am more of a general practitioner. What I found, you know, someone comes into you and says, I want to retain you, and here's a large sum of money. It's hard to say, nah, thanks, take your money and go down the street. It's hard to say that. But that said, there's obviously practice areas that I will not go into. So I've found myself moving more toward, you know, bankruptcy, juvenile law, and then, you know, wills and trusts and probates and estates areas. And the nice thing is that the juvenile court keeps me busy by keep setting appointments. So that's another revenue source that I'm sure we'll talk about. Court-appointed cases, they don't pay the most that you could get in the market, but guess what? They will pay you. The county will pay you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.